Welcome to Civil Dissent. These podcasts are about you. Ticia and Ron are speaking as citizen activists responding to the explosive conditions of our times that affect us all. In the spirit of the fairness doctrine, we will air conflicting views and you will determine what is valid. We will provide you with leads and contacts to government, business, community organizations, and more. And you take the action. In democracy, information and participation are key. Use your key, your voice, for a better world. Ticia and Dr. Ron have each traveled to more than a dozen countries and have studied political science, anthropology, and communications. Ron has even tried the undercooked mutton at the Canadian Pavilion at Epcot Center. We differ on our views, but we agree that our friendship is more than important than our differences. We hope you feel the same. Now, without further ado, whatever that means, Ticia and Ron on Civil Dissent.
Well, I see where you're going with that, and I have to tell you, I do have concerns on the back end. For example, if we were to dress him in an orange jumpsuit, he'd be invisible. And I would suspect a prison break on the very first day. He'd be out of there. So we're going to have to excuse me.
What are you talking about, crazy?
1. Welcome to Civil Dissent, and my name is Ron Ian Haben, and I'm here with my friend Ticia Bauza, and we are here for another rabid discussion, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but I'd like to introduce Ticia, and she is going to share a highlight of her week.
Yes, before you go one step further, since you brought up orange jumpsuit, and we know who you, I think, are referring to.
Nothing specific.
Nothing specific.
No.
I think that Georgia's decision to have the Trump trial on YouTube, is ridiculous. I can understand having the audio, but I don't understand having any kind of a video on YouTube over this.
Yeah, he's gained a lot of weight. Whoever that is.
He lost weight to begin with.
No.
That's how informed you are on this.
He lied. Well, of course he lied. What am I talking about?
He's innocent and still proven, and he's innocent until proven guilty.
And his supporters are even more innocent. Go right ahead.
Just my point that I think that it sets a bad precedence to put trials like that on YouTube, for God's sake.
It's the state law. It's not national.
It doesn't matter that it's a state law. It's inappropriate, I think.
Georgia is my favorite state.
Oh, Christ. Next.
Yeah.
Next thing you have to say.
Okay. Well, one of the themes, if not the theme of Civil Dissent, is realizing your own power and using it as a good citizen and as a connected citizen should. Now, what I'm going to talk about briefly is a local issue, but I think that it could be imitated all over at least the United States. And that is yesterday we had two different opinions about how Orange County, Florida tax money should be spent. And one was by the mayor of Orange County, Jerry Demings. And he said that the Orange County tourist tax money, in the many millions, should be spent on aggrandizing and enlarging the second largest convention center in the United States. The second would be to put a roof over the local football stadium, which houses college football games. And third, to upgrade the local basketball arena here called Amway Center. Problem 1, convention centers, people are having less conventions, fewer conventions than ever before. And I will also tell you that several conventions have canceled coming down to Orange County because of some of the racist statements of our governor. A second point would be that I've been to the football stadium a number of times for college games, and my friends from the north all say, this is great because look at the temperatures. It's 72 degrees, and I just came down from Syracuse, New York, and this is heaven. Look at that beautiful blue sky. So, of course, we're going to put a roof on the stadium from our tax money. And third, the basketball arena is called Amway Center, and it is home to the DeVos family-owned Orlando Magic. And I don't know about you, but since they're among the very wealthiest families in America, and you may remember Betsy DeVos was Secretary of Education who never saw a public school that she liked, they have the opportunity to pass this $25 million upgrade to the citizens of Orange County. Now, I've got problems with that, and so my local commissioner, whose name is Nicole Wilson here in Orange County, hooray for District 1, she feels the same funds should be spent on, affordable housing for tourist workers who get very low wages. Orlando ranks 50th out of 50 municipal cities and areas in average salary. She also wants to get us a whole new fleet, maybe 600 new electric buses, so that workers don't have to take 2 or 3 buses each way just to get to work. And by the way, it'd be nice to actually put little roofs over the bus stops so people don't get rained on or bake in the sun. So I called my commissioner and I told my opinion, and her executive aide, after we talked about 10 minutes, said, "Boy, did you make my day. You put a smile on my face, because we've been getting calls from, lobbyists in town and their flunkies." And we had a very enriching conversation, and that Ms. Wilson would be thrilled with your call and your point of view. And that's just an example that we're asking you to take similar action, either on how your local money is being spent or any issue that tickles your fancy. The idea is you matter, you have power, and you ought to exercise it. And with that, I'll turn you over to my friend Ticia.
I can't disagree with the things that you've pointed out, except in fact I would add to that. I would add to what's happening to the butchering of our fauna and trees for construction purposes, many of which really are questionable. To begin with, despite the fact that I very much like the Winter Park Library, I think there should have been a design that maintained many of the trees that were in the area. But nonetheless, I too, like you, think that it's up to the people to take action, especially when we're trying to facilitate their reaching out to government and to organizations. Because really, the more they talk about the environment and the need for trees and the need for, some filtering of carbon dioxide, et cetera, the more trees they seem to cut down. And this idea that the developers, for every tree they cut down, they add to a tree fund that plants something somewhere else, is slightly ridiculous, because then they can always go to the other area and decide, now we'll move our funding to another tree site. Come on, start designing buildings and structures that work with the environment without doing more and more damage. Each tree is not just a tree. It's a home to birds. It's a home to ants. It's a home to lots of creatures. It's an entire universe to them. And they're indiscriminately being chopped down when they could very easily be incorporated into designs. Nonetheless, but another thing that I'm concerned about along those lines, but just on a more international scale, is what's happening in Germany. Germany is trying to move rapidly towards a green economy and green energy. But what they're finding is that it's not necessarily such a great thing, because what's happening is that it will be shooting up the costs of energy, and it will require for them to do this to put pipelines, and though they won't be dependent on Russia and they won't be dependent on nuclear energy, they will be dependent on hydrogen pipelines to get their energy. And the construction of pipelines, I don't care where you put them, create great environmental stress. So it's really sad that we're proceeding without the proper proper research in terms of the design of windmills and the design of this alternative energy. And the idea that, we're going to go to electric cars. Well, China is way ahead of us on the batteries and the electric cars, people. All right. And that's bad enough. That's bad enough to make us think twice. In any event, those are the things that I'm concerned about, because Germany is just sort of the canary in the coal mine. It's an indication that you actually could wind up with a shortage of energy. The German people are beginning to buy, because they're concerned, beginning to buy generators for their individual homes because they're losing faith in their grid. I would not like to see that happen here.
Okay. Well, I think what we will do then is go on to the topic of the day. I just want to add something to, I forgot to give phone numbers, which is very critical in all of our work. My commissioners here in Orange County is Commissioner Nicole Wilson, and her phone is 407-836-7350, 407-836-7350. And if you would like to also speak to Mayor Jerry Demings, that is 407-836-7370, 407-836-7370. And now we'll move to the topic of the day, and they are related. And I'm going to, some of the things we're going to talk about are palliative care, hospice care, and euthanasia. And I think that they make sense in that order. And I'll just begin with the following. Palliative care, as many of us know, is very, very empathetic care by physicians for those that they feel are quite ill and perhaps near death's door. And what the underlying theme of that is keep patients comfortable, give them the best possible quality of life that they could have, encourage all kinds of visitation, what kind of music do they like, and foods, memories, activities of perhaps biographies and art that they wish to create or music they wish to create. The idea is that all of us, and in America, we're very shy about death, I would suggest, that this is a step for comfort, for support, and letting patients know that today we pretty much have the means to eliminate pain and eliminate a very difficult death. And there's a whole subgroup of physicians in palliative care all over the United States, and I suspect the Western world, who do a wonderful job in making patients much more comfortable. Ticia?
Have more experience, I think. I have some personal experience, but if you've volunteered for hospice, and if maybe you could just give us a little taste of the difference between palliative care and hospice care.
Okay, well, I'll be happy to. I'll describe hospice care as families and the patient have made a decision, and it's something that is frightening, and in America, it all started in Great Britain, but in America, we seem to be making hospice decisions really late in the game, and by that I mean many families and patients will. It sounds like they're throwing up the white flag of surrender to death, and some of them, many families wait 72 hours before they acknowledge and call hospice care, because in the United States, an awful lot of families and patients will fight to the very end. The idea is to fight death, and you hear the phrase all the time on TV, he lost his battle with whatever, okay? It's not a battle. It's an inevitability. And yes, it's scary, but hospice can come to the home months in advance, or some cities in Central Florida, there are facilities, there are very comfortable facilities that people can go to spend the last weeks or months of their lives, and you could be in hospice at least 6 months before you renew. I do want to point out, and we all know, many of us know, that former President Jimmy Carter 6 months ago declared he's conceding all medical intervention, and he is going on hospice care. And let's think about that, because from beginning to end, he's been a teacher. And with that, we're going to take a short break, and we will be back with Civil Dissent. Well, we're back with Civil Dissent, and I'm Ron Ian Haben, and I'm with my friend Ticia Bauza. And before we get started again on our topics of quality of life and death, each of us perhaps has a preference, but I won't influence that for you. But I just wanted to do important shout-outs and people who've really been supporting the program. There is a terrific podcast that's been going on for a few years here in Orlando, and Orlando's burgeoning podcast community. The name of the podcast is Scotch and Good Conversation. Scotch and Good Conversation. And the gentleman who runs it is named Peter, and he is a terrific interviewer. And I would urge you, if you are enjoying podcasts and want listen to great conversation from everyone from local poets, musicians, crazed people like myself and Ticia, and all important local people, being art, being food, being music. I would encourage you to listen to Scotch and Good Conversation. A second shout out is to our friend Banks Helfrich, and he is the fellow who accidentally brought us together, so you can all blame him. I know I do. And he has a wonderful product that he calls Dance Party, the third Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. At the Winter Park Library. And it is really called a dance party, and what it is very topical conversations, very often with people who disagree with each other, or one person who will be happy to take Q&A, and they're fascinating. We've both been to a number of them and have participated in them, and you're going to have a very, very great evening, third Thursday of every month at the Winter Park Library Dance Party.
And when things get tense, that's when the music gets turned on and everybody starts to dance.
Right. The last time Ticia and I did that, it was wall-to-wall music, so it was quite tense, and people got a good workout. Now, the third person we'd love to shout about is Sally Ann Leslie, and she has a terrific locally produced podcast called Reclaiming Pride, and that drops every 2 weeks, next show being September 3rd. And I'll tell you, she really gets into wonderful topics of relationships, both healthy and not so healthy. And she teaches at Valencia College, a very, very bright woman. And we look forward to listen. We've each heard a number of her shows. So Reclaiming Pride is really very beautiful and makes you think and makes you opine one way or the other. So
she actually runs a team at Valencia College having to do with AI.
Yes, with AI. And am I right in saying she's a psychologist as well? No. So whatever you do, do not think of her as a psychologist, because that would be terribly wrong, and don't listen to Ron.
But she's very insightful and a lot of firsthand experience with a lot of wisdom. comes along with her experience.
Exactly so. So we will get back. We're talking about hospice and hospice care, and how in America many families come late to the decision of having their loved ones loved up. And that's really the bottom line of this, that if you want your loved one, and if they want to be loved up, to be gentled, to be encouraged, to do the activities that they can still do and enjoy. I had the privilege for 2.5 years of having my own clients and going to their homes and having amazing experiences. And one time, a gentleman wanted to swim in his pool again, and we helped him do that. And the joy that he had, just because he had one deficit that was more and more encroaching on his quality of life, it didn't mean that he couldn't do the other things or have the best darn chocolate he ever had in his life, or even a great Starbucks. The idea is that the hospice team, the hospice movement, in most cases accentuates life for the patient, and it gives the family, very importantly, a break from the dread and the difficult emotional challenges of caring for the loved one. And it's not at all a giving up. It's really a toast to life. And if you have to make that very difficult decision, perhaps you'd consider hospice early on. And as I noted, Jimmy Carter's now in month 7 of his hospice care. All that meant was he wanted to be loved up. He wanted to teach America how to do this, as usual. And he wanted to give his family a break, and no more medical intervention. That's way more difficult than the experience he's having. Ticia?
Though I highly respect his decision for hospice, I will tell you this with my experience, and I can only speak from my experience in this particular state. And though I think that hospice provides a tremendous service, I think it has to be examined still a little bit more, because the decision to go on hospice is not solely that of the family. Apparently, before you're accepted into hospice, at least here, they'll try to evaluate the situation and the condition the person is in. And in the past, if not at the moment, they were using sort of a numerical, quantitative way of doing it. And in my aunt's case in particular, originally when they had done this evaluation, they weren't going to accept her until I explained to them that would be a bad idea, because I would then make a real issue of the way that they're evaluating people who should or shouldn't have hospice. I think it shouldn't be a quantitative decision. It should be a qualitative decision for the person. Also, I had the experience with my sister, who I adored. Now, the one important thing I would like to say about that many people don't know, and it may be policies from hospital to hospital or state to state, but in my sister's case, when I had to take her the last day really that she was with us to the hospital, there I was able to, in the emergency room, opt for her to have hospice. And what that meant, know this, what that meant is that they couldn't separate us. And this was during the time when there were still issues with COVID. So I remained by her side, and they didn't move us from the emergency room, which was a private suite that we had in emergency. And it involved the following. It involved that the choice had to be made. Do they continue to give her oxygen, which they consider an extraordinary extension of life, or not oxygen? And to tell you the truth, even though Jimmy Carter has been able to brave 7 months of this, I didn't want my sister, who was special needs, to suffer in any way, shape, or form. So she was calm, she was peaceful. And I said, no more oxygen. And as far as the morphine that she was being given, they had it originally at every 4 hours. And I said, listen, she is not going to wake up in misery. Have the doctor relook at this every 4 hours is, unacceptable. And sure enough, she was tiny, and they looked at the situation again. They gave her the necessary morphine, and she passed very peacefully. And I was very, very happy for that. So really, all of this also involves the family taking some responsibility and being able to deal with the choices that they've made.
Well, I do appreciate that, Ticia. You know, the commonality we have here is it is the most personal of decisions. And obviously, there's no one-size-fits-all. But I'm very, very grateful that hospice is there. I'm very grateful that palliative care is here. And both have great value, and they are options that families and patients may want to consider, because the bottom value of all this is love and comfort and support to one and all. And there's no one size fits all, but these two means of care are beginning to emerge even stronger in the United States. And maybe we're a little late coming to the dance, but they are happening and people should know about them. We've run out of time because we wanted to talk about euthanasia, but we will. And stay tuned for that one. We will get back to it. But Ticia, do you have any closing words?
Yes, just one more thing. Always check the policies of whatever organization you're going to use for hospice, because they may have different policies in terms of what's required or how they execute or what teams are given to you and who's on the teams. So ask a lot of questions. Make no presumptions.
Hear, hear. And we're all for that. And consider what your heart is telling you and what your loved one is telling you, and I think you're going to be walking in the right direction. So we come to the end of another program of Civil Dissent, and we'd like to invite you to go to our website. Well, you can read it. Go right ahead.
Well, I think we should touch on euthanasia, because I think it's something important before we sign off in any way, and that's to let the public know that now there are a number of states that in the United States that will provide euthanasia, which means you're in control. You can use your free will if you're in suffering and you want your life to end. However you define suffering, I think is important. And among those states, which you can look up information on, are things like Oregon and Washington and Montana and Vermont and California, Colorado, Washington, D.C., Hawaii, New Jersey, Maine, and New Mexico. We will have at least some information on a few of those for you. So that's very important, because I think personally that that's part of free will. All right, not necessarily having someone else decide extending your life, whether for their particular religious reasons or the particular laws of a particular state. If need be, those things need to be addressed and changes need to be made so that people don't suffer, okay? Because you can't, out of one side of your mouth, talk about, oh, Heavenly Father, oh, how great to be with the Heavenly Father, and then out of the other side of your mouth, when He's calling you back, try to extend a person's life no matter what their suffering is. Absurd.
Well, all kinds of bells and whistles are going off, and we're going to have to end our program there, unfortunately. But we would like to thank Castle Door Studios for providing singularly the best production facility this side of Abbey Road. And that's Castle Door Studios, technically in the beautiful city of Winter Park. And we'd like to encourage you to go to our website, civildissent.com. And please, please, please support us at Patreon. That's very important to us. All references that we refer to and others that didn't make the cut are on our website. And we'd like to thank you all for listening. Please keep doing so. We're very encouraged by your support. We enjoy doing this so much, and it's how two friends can avoid killing each other who agree on almost nothing. And so with that, we'll say goodbye for now from Civil Dissent. Thank you for listening to Civil Dissent. If you agreed with a view you've heard today, or if you have thoughts of your own, go to our website, civildissent.com, to find references where you can make a real difference. Take action, and see you next time on Civil Dissent.